You're listening to Crossing the Axis, the podcast that explores the commercial side of film production. With your host, James Keblas.
Welcome, listeners, and thank you for tuning in to the show. If you've been listening to recent episodes or reading my articles, then you know I'm a champion of production companies who operate as specialists as opposed to being more generalist. You can see this play out when a production company has a particular skill they market to clients. Sometimes this is like a vertical niche, filming food, for instance, sports, outdoor adventure, and so on. But it can also be more horizontal business focus that crosses categories like specializing in action sequences, design focus, animation, or narrative live action. In either case, having a tight positioning allows the production company to more easily differentiate themselves from other competitors, talk about their strengths, and ultimately demand higher fees for their services. Now, let me be clear, positioning doesn't always mean it's exclusively what you do. A golfer may aim for a hole-in-one, but they'll accept a landing on the green, for instance. Besides, we all take projects for a variety of reasons, whether it's the money, a client you like, or you have the extra capacity at the time. But positioning is what you advertise. It's what you want to do the most because it's what you do the best. It's what you say you do because it's one of the things you can claim you do better than just about anyone else. That's why I was so struck by some recent posts by SHEP Films, who seem to be pushing customer story production a lot on their website and the social media. This was profound to me because SHEP Films is a pretty big deal in the more glamorous commercial making space and a knock it out of the park leader in feature film production with their critically acclaimed film Prospect, which is an incredible movie, by the way, and I highly recommend folks stream it. So, to explain all of this, I'm joined today by Brice Budke, one of the founders of SHEP Films, to help me understand why a production company so respected for their sci-fi world-building vision would be leading their marketing efforts with customer stories. Brice, welcome to the show.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Explain yourself.
You set me up like I should just be making all my money doing sci-fi films. So maybe you know how the industry works these days. But.
So did I get this right? Have I mischaracterized your entire company?
No. You nailed it. You very perceptive.
Okay, so my eyes aren't deceiving me. You are kind of, I use, this is not a real word, but it's my word, productizing customer stories. Is that how I'm seeing this?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I can go off on the, probably 20-minute explanation, but that's not fun. Short of it is, yes, we are known for doing sci-fi films, right? Like my business partner, Z-Girl, Chris Caldwell, very good at world building, made an amazing film, with Prospect. The narrative doesn't pay the bills, or at least doesn't for us yet, right? So we're keeping the lights on, keeping our mortgages paid with commercial work. And part of that's been on choice, right? Like we haven't wanted to move to LA and really make our, get our bills paid via doing work on other people's films, right? Going more on that side, because we like the creative freedom that comes with, being able to tell our own stories. And so we're very intentionally, keep being our commercial business alive for that side, but we also just really like it. It's a nice balance, right? Like it can be it is pretty exhausting working on any amount of like narrative, any amount of films, right? Like it takes a lot of you and they just go forever, man, right? Like 2-3 year projects, right? Like on purely on timeline wise, like I love diving into a story, getting in 6-8 weeks, getting back out, diving into another one, right? Like you got to go through a full arc and you just get exposed to a lot of other stuff. But that's why we do commercials in general, right? But you're asking about like customer stories, right? Like
yeah. I want to talk about what a customer story is not. Like the difference between so you're saying customer stories, that's not a case study, or is that a case study, or is it a different way?
You can kind of brand them however you want. I like the idea of customer stories. I mean, everyone knows these videos, right? You show up on someone's website, you click on their like customers tab, or they're describing something and it's some talking head explaining how they used a product and all these things, and it kind of rambles on, stock track behind it. And I think part of it is just customer stories feel much more elevated because we're trying to make something much more elevated. But in short, whether they're case studies, customer stories, we are working with a client to tell their marketing, story, their like brand story through their customers' words, right? So however you want to like package up the branding of that one, like that's what these are, right? Like we are talking to customers of our clients to help tell our clients like marketing mission, and they can be done real poorly.
Yeah, I did a whole bunch of research when I was thinking about doing this podcast with you, and the explainer videos or the testimonial videos, or just like, no, this can't be how it's done. There are corporations that are doing this, and I thought there might be like I started unpacking it more, and why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I actually saw this opportunity in the marketplace. I was like, oh God, I see it. There's a big gap here. Is that one of the things that you see, or is that one of the motivators, or is it just accidental, or are you?
I started out my career not in video production, right? I was a consultant, mostly with Microsoft, the consultant, not like McKinsey, but like higher paid temp workers, right? Like in the sense of, I'm not making minimum wage, but we're going in trying to do staff augmentation, doing project management style things. Came out of that right out of school and did that for 5 years in Microsoft, often in marketing realms. But while I was doing that, Zeke and Chris were fresh out of school and doing these docu-style case study things for our college we went to. And it was kind of their stepping stone. And so it was this spot where it's like, it was their stepping stone, and they were quickly trying to get out of that to things that were scripted, right? Like the glamorous ones, like, everyone wants the lotto commercial. And so it's kind of where our roots were. We had this one, honestly, I think it's been viewed like over 100,000, maybe 200,000 times. It's called the What is Gray Pants video. It's this lighting design firm in Soto. And it was like the big one for them where they really like cracked something. And it's honestly, we still get referrals for it all the time. I will get it like that one was a decade old, but they cracked something there. And it tells it's more of like a brand portrait, but it's the same, that one's not a customer story. It's about brand talking about themselves, but it's interview based. It uses a lot of B-roll. It's docu style, not scripted. And that's where they started, right? And I think that's where a lot of production companies start, and we're trying to get out of it into the other things. And what we found is we through a random circumstance of events, were paired up with this client who really was trying to do these better. And it was like, all right, like we've done these a lot. We just haven't been doing them recently, but yeah, I'm intrigued. Like I would love to do these better. I mean, that was now 4 or 5 years ago. And we cracking that open, it was like, oh, Zeke and Chris, back even before I joined, had a method that was really leaning towards doing these better, but we just kind of left it on the shelf because like, oh no, we want to go show Seahawks fighting kaiju monsters, and we want to go, like brush off this script and all that stuff. And that feels like, the pinnacle, if you will, of commercials. But we came back around to these customer stories and be like, no, I really like doing these. Part of it is that there's so many of them are done so poorly, and they don't have to be.
Yeah.
And it's a spot where it's like, oh, this is, I don't know. I get to go fly around the world, the country, and talk to people about their real stories and just like how technology is changing. For us, it's often technology stories, right? It doesn't have to be changing their lives and their business. Like I have been in snack factories. I have been in like Italian furniture factories. I've been in accounting offices, right? I missed this because I had a kid born around the same time, but we're up in the Yukon territories doing one. Like, get to go around, hear real people's stories, and part of it's like they're good. Like when you do one of these well, it's like you're telling a marketing story, but you're also telling like this customer story, and we get so many compliments from the customers, which is like.
Let me ask you a question about this. So if you have a client that wants to do the customer story, how deeply do you get into finding the right story, finding the right customer, where you want the story to be about the customer, right? Their customer, they're the hero, the brand, the company, your client is the guide, right? And their customer is the hero. How do you get involved in finding them?
Usually we're in the spot of vetting. The finding the customers can be, I would happily do it, but usually it's one where you have to be pretty integrated with their like operations, right? Like there's going to be account teams that are like fielding, potential customers who are there. There's going to be engineering, like who's on the beta test of whatever the new technology is. Because a lot of this is, there's a lot of constraints that make this tough of like you're wanting to land a marketing message on a new product, but you need a customer who's been using that new product. And those are kind of mutually exclusive other than like beta tests or like early releases. And so you're finding like who has been using this product that's still, in the marketing cycle of trying to hype, right? Like they're part of the new sales motion. So often we're in a spot where we're working with our clients to look at, okay, we have this marketing goal that's laddering up to this like larger campaign, whether it's an event, it's often events, right? Events or these larger moments on their marketing calendar. We have this customer, potentially these customers with these different stories. Do you think we can mash these? Like, do you see the story there? Or usually honestly, how hard do we have to pull teeth to get that story to align, right? Because sometimes you're just served up and you're like, I barely need to prep for this. I can show up and they're just going to tell me what I need. And other times you're really stretching the reality of the customer story and the needs of the marketing message that needs to happen, right? So we don't often get hired out to go find the customers, just to kind of concisely answer that. But we are often in the vetting stage. I mean, this is one where it's like, hopefully we're trusted enough for someone. I'm like, I think you should cancel this project. Like, this isn't a good customer. Like, we'll do it, right? But like, maybe save your budget and like come back when there's like a customer who like really lands this. But like, otherwise, like we'll always make it work. But it's how much heavy lifting do we have to do to like land that story.
And who are you working with the most when you're going after this? Are you working with the sales team department that's trying to sell their product and get customers, or is it the CMO's team, or is it a combination? Like, who's your primary client?
Changes a bit company by company. Normally, if a company is big enough to have a customer evidence, customer advocacy, customer storytelling team, they have different names kind of wherever you're at, then that's usually under central marketing somewhere, or brand marketing, again, whatever this customer is called. But they usually are then acting as an internal agency towards the product marketing managers or the sales enablement manager, like marketing folk. Because normally what you're doing is you are highlighting a feature if you're within a tech company, a product if you're in a more product featured company, and that is owned by a product marketing person who is then working with customer evidence and the account teams to like blend, because you need someone who knows the customer, you need someone who knows the product, and then if the company is big enough, you have these people who are experts in customer evidence kind of bringing those together. But if it's a smaller company, we're usually working with the product marketing, right, on that side. They're the ones really build to get these goods out, but it's usually part of events. Sometimes we'll work directly with the event team, or like sales enablement, like field sales enablement. Like these are being used by people out in field sales to land big deals, right? Like you're trying to land some large deal and you're showing a customer like them and really getting that like heartfelt message to kind of like either as a conversation opener or as like a seal the deal with the CEO before they need to like sign on the dotted line.
I was asking that question because I was imagining the different groups or different teams and a client might have a different point of view about what they think is important for the story. And I was thinking, which team gets it? But
entire process built, it's because it makes a good story, but it's entire process built to get through the various toll gates of internal sign off in order to get one of these landed and not have it like watered down, because there are so many cooks in this kitchen, right? Like there are so many cooks in this kitchen. Very aware.
How deeply do you get involved with the creative development then of the kind of the script writing and the story? And
we can do this turnkey end to end, right? Like a lot of it is trying to figure out like what our client has in house that we're supplementing, right? Like if it is a product marketing manager who like has no video background and they're being asked to do evidence, I've never done it before, we can handle it end to end. Often, otherwise, sometimes they have people on their team who can supplement some of the scripting or the interviewing or other portions of it. But the high level, what we kind of need every time is like I am not in the endless meetings that are in most like large corporate bureaucracies these days of knowing what the like end goal marketing message is. But once we know that, we can be like, this does or doesn't serve it, right? Like there's like, I know you really want to talk about sustainability and that lands that, but you're muddying the message, right? And we need to cut that out if the end goal is empowerment of frontline workers, right? Like sustainability is just, it's an aside. I don't even want to talk about it. Put it in the written case study. Don't put it in the video case study.
That makes me think about how far you might get involved in the impact or the goals of these videos. Do you get involved and say, hey, we could figure out like the media buying of this, or placement might be for getting the call to actions that you want? Or, because you're marketing yourselves as these customer story experts. So how far, the further you can get down that pipeline, the more money you can make.
We could, right? I mean, we could get into media buying. We can get into those. I think part of this is like, we know we are actively moving away from a more like generalized set of services, right? Like, look, I can make a sci-fi film. I can make a customer story. I can make a really bad case study if you really needed me to do that, right? I don't want to, but I probably could. We've done a short film for Sony, that was part of marketing a new phone. We like filmed something with their phone. So it was like heavy integration with their engineering team and working on the color side. It's like we went deep onto that side. Part of this is like, no, we're trying to get away from generalized, right? Because part of it is like you're scattered, right? Like you're working on one thing, then another. And it's like, I want to get better at these things, right? I don't just want to we like doing video production. We like doing these marketing things, but I also I like being good at what we're doing, right? Like on the like SHEP originals, the narrative sides, like we were really digging into world building. And that means sometimes we're putting up art installations and sometimes we're doing films and sometimes we're doing things adjacent to that, right? Like building series Bibles and run from there. And we're getting a lot better at it, right? On the commercial side, it's like, no, we're digging into customer stories. And part of it is like, I don't want to dig into customer stories, media buying. Like, I don't really want to be doing event production, even if events are where our videos are landing, because I think we're going to get worse at this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is an art form. They seem easy, maybe, I don't know. They seem like a lot of companies stepping stone into video production because you are a small crew. You can do it with 2 or 3 people. You can have relatively cheap equipment, and the person who writes, directs, can edit. Like, you're pretty self-contained, right? So you can offer pretty low rates if you're starting out because it's just all your money.
And it shows. I've looked at a lot of them.
That honestly, there's part of it is skill set, part of it's just budget and resourcing, right? But part of it is like there are so many constraints on this that in order to land with a really good case study, customer story, whatever you want to call it, you have to really know how to balance these. Like, you don't want to show up with a crew of 20 people into some snack factory in Australia to get the perfect lighting of chickpeas running down like a conveyor belt, because you're going to so disrupt that customer's operations that they will never do something like this for your client again. Right? Like you have to go in and you have to make that customer like your client even more when you leave, which is low touch, high professionalism. And that's like that's an art. But on the other side, it's like you're being tasked by your client to do like the highest level of work possible. So it's like, I need the best 4 people possible flying out there with really lightweight travel gear, more than I'm just gonna hedge my bets and throw 20 people at it to make sure I get what I need. A part of, that's one microcosm of this, but it's there are so many levers you have to pull, and it isn't just throw money at it problem, right? Like, this isn't a throw gear, throw money, it's like this is an expertise problem, right? And we're not going to get better if we're not just continually doing and refining.
And so let's talk about when they get it wrong, because that's the fun stuff. That's
Okay.
you see some of them going for drama, and it's not there. They like the problem we had, but it's not. You just don't believe any of it. You feel like it's a paid advertisement. It's not. How do you get around that? How do you create the adversity story or the risk story or the social proof without it coming across as artificial saccharine?
The like cheap key to this, or like the pithy one-liner, is like it's about authenticity, right? Like you can smell inauthenticity quite a ways away, but it's like you have to tell a story that exists, and that is the documentary side of it. But at the same time, kind of the other pole is like, we are not journalists, we are not documentarians, we are marketers. And so it's the pole of those two, and you get it wrong by leaning too hard on either side, right? Like, you go in there and you think you're a journalist and you listen to what the customer wants to say, and you just kind of package that up as like a chat GPT, condensed story of it. You're going to hear some nice little story about this company, and you're really going to miss the larger marketing message. And that's just going to make it fall flat within the activities that your client's trying to use it for, right? Like, it might be a nice video, but it has no use. And at best case, you're like, cool, I learned a lot about this company, but why is this why is this on, insert client, profile? And you go too hard to the marketing side, and you are the worst is when you are having essentially customers teleprompt something that some marketing person obviously wrote, right? Like, if you are inserting a script into some customer's hand to read, like, you have failed. on so many levels. Because it's like they're not professional actors. You can tell they're scripted. And also, unless you have a really good script writer, you're going to write a script that's made to be read, not on a screen, not read out loud. It's just going to sound funny. It's word choice, it's cadence, right? And so it's like either of those sides. And so it's having to find that middle. But ironically, the middle of that is sometimes you have to fake a lot of things to land that authenticity. And I think that's the line that a lot of companies or a lot of like clients don't cross, where it's like we got a compliment once on creating one of the most authentic customer stories this, exec at this company has seen. And I looked at it, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This story? I mean, great story. I want to be clear. Love this story. It was a rush project. It was for a big event, but it was for some company that worked out of a co-working space. And so we rented an office, dressed it to make the office feel like what this company's office should feel like, despite the fiscal realities of this company being they mostly work from home, they need a co-working space, right? So we like dressed a whole office that was completely fictional. They're one of like the customers, was a news organization, and we were not able to film a news organization because of constraints. So I hired actors, I rented a location, and I like created a fake news organization that we filmed as though they were using this customer's products. We did screen replace, we VFX'd some of the screen replace because it wasn't quite screen ready. So we like did a bunch of screen replace, did a bunch of like, UI style VFX creation, landed in there. So it was essentially a completely fake story, or fake visuals, I should say. But it was very illustrative of what this company was going for, and it felt real. The like interview, the whole like talk track was completely real, customer voice, everything from there. But it felt like, oh man, this company is so cool, and look at this news organization, all of this. But it was like, no, those are actors, paid locations across the board. But it was done really well, and it landed that authenticity more than if I showed up in the co-working space and filmed that. It would have had like a dissonance of like, why are you in a co-working space? Like it wouldn't have felt right for the story. And so sometimes you have to know when to be inauthentic, in air quotes, right, in order to better land that authenticity. And I think that's a hurdle that a lot of people run up against. We're like, well, that's not the real story. And it's like, everyone knows this is marketing. And like the thing that you have to commit to is that you're not any video we always get customer approval, not client. Well, client approval, but customer. Cause it's a lot of like, if they watch it, like, that's not my story, then it's never going anywhere. So it has to pass that line of authenticity, but the dressing of it, often they're like, man, I really thought I bungled that interview and I sound so articulate. And you're like, oh yeah, it must have just been nerves. It's like, no, I reworked half of your sentences in order to like make you say the point a little bit more clearly and a little more concisely. And they're like, oh yeah. I was like, oh, it's all you.
Well, listen, customer success stories is nothing new, and many, many, many people do it. But what stood out to me when you guys went for it, first of all, you were claiming it in a really bold way, and that's what struck me. And then when I thought about why you were claiming it, I thought, oh, it's that world building sci-fi part of their brain that they're like, I was like, oh, I get it. Like that actually can lend itself well, in my understanding of it anyway, a customer story. You want your client's customer to feel like they're actually in that world, right? To sign on, to become a member or whatever the subscription might be, to buy the service. And your sci-fi experience, is it the same muscle that you're using? Do you use the same sets? Do you have, are there Easter eggs that I can find from Prospect and any of the
large cloud providers are powering all of the Prospect? You're right. I think it's a funny way to think about it, but I think you're 100% correct, right? Like it's a lot of that muscle is the world building, but it's also, it's the sci-fi world building. Part of it is just the skills we have learned having to create such big budget films. Well, big budget compared to commercials, small budget compared to other people. We were relatively efficient with Prospect, but it was still $4 million. It maybe should have been $8 million, but it was.
Well, I was going to say, making a sci-fi movie is hard with any budget. Making a sci-fi movie successful and believable for $4 million is talent. that is where I have to give you some shouts out. I'm very impressed.
I appreciate that. It's part of that world building, right? It's part of, but it's all the little things that go into that, right? For sci-fi world building, right? We are extensively creating in-world brands, right? And different typefaces and all these different things. So when you like, if we were to go do a, whatever, a rom-com, you can just grab a bunch of like, you could make the rip-off Oreos and whatnot, right? And go from there. But we have to like, what is a sci-fi Oreo, right? And it's all these layers and layers of reality that are going there. When you take that over to this customer success, customer story, it's figuring out what those layers are, which, similar to other things, it's how you're pulling in the score, right? We will always do a custom score because you're not going to get that reality. You're not going to get that emotional arc if you're just doing some pin drop stock track. We're being really careful with our lensing, our cinematography to ride. I mean, this is now out of my wheelhouse, right? But it's in a general world, right? It's like we are choosing much dirtier glass because we don't want it clear. This needs to feel like you're there, right? Like we're trying to like take off the like infomercial lens, right? Or that like hyper clarity, make it feel a little more real. Where, most of it's handheld. You're trying to roll into that docu-cinema verite. So it's like, it feels like you're there. It's more like The Office is like the parody of that, right? But it's where you feel like you're in the office because they're jiggling the camera around, right? And then it is coloring, right? Like it's all the layers of like what we learn on film production, music, right? Like sound design. It's all of these things you have to take into account, but it's also thinking through like, all right, like we need an office. Their office isn't good. What do we do with this, right? Like how do you land that? And it's, how do I land that with 5 people halfway across the world, right? And it's like, well, sometimes I have Zeke or Chris go because they, have directed Pedro Pascal, and they can definitely direct these like 2 actors that I, pulled out of some agency in Amsterdam, right? And they can like get them across really quickly without having an AD and a makeup person, all the other things. So it's like, we can't do that on customer location, right? Not even just a budget thing. It's like, I'm not doing that because we're putting too much onto the customer, and I need to make it as seamless as possible for them because I am like a representative of our client. If I make their life hard, we have killed the entire reason for us there, which is like, this is their super customer that they are featuring on prominently in their marketing. They have to leave feeling even better about that client. And I am the way that happens, right? Like I am the representative of this client, even if I don't work for them directly. And so it's like, yeah, maybe I want to make a person. They're not showing up because I'm not having 10 people mill in this person's like factory or wherever it is, their showroom in order to land the story.
So being a BizDev show that this is, the first thing that comes to mind, I guess there's 2 types of customer stories that I think about. And there's the classic B2B is often what you get, like the big major companies selling services to other smaller companies. And you see these customer success stories. That's often a tool that is used there. And on the other side, in a more B to business to customer, actually what came to mind for me was like Red Bull or like Nike. Like Red Bull is kind of a master at the B2C customer story. If you think about how they take these niche athletes and then their whole brand is based on the story of their athletes. And I thought, oh, that's a customer story, but that's a B2C customer story where maybe like AWS or Microsoft or whatever, or, Intuit is doing their customer stories more toward other businesses. Are you marketing yourselves in one direction or the other, or both? How are you going about your biz dev on that?
We primarily are doing B2B. I think a lot of the B2C campaigns are orchestrated as part of larger, big marketing moments that are orchestrated under large agency contracts, right? Happily, we'll work with agencies. We have a storied history working kind of on that line. We have found a lot of success on the B2B side, part because we work so well direct to client, right? In the sense of it, which takes its own skills, right? Takes different skills working with agencies, but agencies do a lot for us if we're working with them, right? They're doing a lot of story vetting ahead of time. Some of the like interview side, some of that will be housed on the agency side. So it's like happily work with them. They're usually not working with our full arsenal of strength unless they're an agency who is, this is an add-on to what they would not otherwise do. So we found like we really, to answer your question, usually it's B2B and working direct with client. And part of that is that there is, you get the right mix of what the marketing goals are that customer stories, case studies are really impactful for, right? Like this is one where you need a wide enough breadth of customers that you can start telling kind of micro stories in there that are also, it can be seen kind of across everyone. So it's often software, right? Because of that. But we work with design agencies, but in order to not they're not creative agencies, right? They're design agencies who are working with other companies there. That's a great one, right? That we work a lot with because it's, again, they have a certain client profile that they are trying to feature to get other clients that are similar but different than that. So usually B2B is the sweet spot here. I mean, I would love to do B2C stuff. That sounds awesome. I think it's just more like you count Red Bull or Nike, but it's like that's two of one of the like best marketing machines in the
But
world.
don't those kind of
right?
seem like customer stories?
Oh no, 100%.
Right? Yeah.
They're the aberration.
Right.
Right. Like, I mean, they're the aberration. I mean, Red Bull is a genius marketer, right? Like they like almost I mean, I cannot say they reinvented Formula One. They inserted themselves into Formula One as a marketing play, and that's like huge for them, right? And there's like a whole thing. Like they're genius marketers. I would love to do more B2C. It's just not, customer stories are not the muscle most B2C places are looking for. And what I'm not trying to do, at least now, is go to customers who aren't looking for customer stories and try to sell them on it directly, right? Because there's a spot where it's like, that's getting into agency land. That's getting into a spot where it's like, maybe we grow there to a spot where we're going and like, look, I could see this whole niche and we go there and expose it. What we have found is that there's a lot of companies doing case studies, customer stories, and they could just be much better than they're doing today for probably not much more budget than they're spending. And it's like, that to me is what I want to focus on, right? They already have a whole apparatus in place for sussing out these customers, for getting all that. There's a lot of legal steps to this. There's a lot of integration with other marketing, right? And I want to come in there and like empower those people as much as possible. If you've never done customer stories, I'd happily work with you, figure all this out, right? Cold calling on people who aren't even thinking about customer stories. It's like, honestly, that sounds all right. But like, again, I just want to be out in customer land talking to customers, right? Like that's where our specialty is.
Yeah. Well, I started out this podcast by being impressed with your willingness to position yourselves, right? You talk about Red Bull. Red Bull's the master of positioning. They didn't go after the sports marketing. They were like, let's find these niche sports with these niche, athletes that are everyone's overlooking and own them. And then I love that. And I think that's what I see you doing with you. Yes, of course you've done this and you've done that and you can do all these things, but you're like, we're experts in this one thing and we're going all in on that. And I just found it to be a really brave thing to do. Also, like I said, when I started doing research for the conversation, I started really looking around to see who's doing customer stories well and whatnot. There is an opening for it to do much better. I think every major corporation needs to have a playlist on the YouTube channel that says customer stories and have a whole bunch of good ones, because right now they are bad and it does not represent them well. And so I started there. I was like, oh my God, I think Brice has figured it out. So I want to end this podcast on one last question that you could offer other production company owners that are thinking about positioning and thinking about letting go of what they say they can do to focus in on one particular thing that they say they can do. And is it scary? Do you feel like you're giving up work? Where are you in that journey?
It's a little scary because there's a lot of projects that come in that are a lot of fun that aren't within like the customer story angle. There's work we're doing actively with people now that don't fit in this bucket. And I like working with this particular clients, like these people, right? I like the stories, the stories we're telling. I like the productions we're doing. It's honestly nice to have a little bit of variety every once in a while. But the other part of it is, production company, I was sick of doing a bunch of RFPs and having to compete almost purely on price, right? Like, it's just like, whatever, right? I mean, it's like maybe what really like jaded me on this one, to full cards on the table was, we made Prospect, beautiful sci-fi film, production design's immaculate, right? Like we had an amazing production design team.
Successful by almost every measurement. Yeah.
It's great, right? And so we're like, all right, well, we can do more commercials in this vein. Like we have an entire apparatus built up around this, right? We have a lot of recognition. Like we won our category in South by Southwest. We have Pedro Pascal, blah, blah, blah. We were in theaters, right? And we would go into rooms and people are like, oh, that's nice, right? Like that's a really great movie. I love it. But when it comes down to it, like they're not going to pay 20% more because I made a film with Pedro Pascal. Like it's like, it's still what it comes down to, the like pitch and the dollars, and which is fine. I mean, that's just the market economy, right? But it was like, oh, if in order, it's I have to niche not in just that I did a feature film. I have to niche in that I make sci-fi commercials, right? Which is like, it's a tiny. I mean, I'm really getting out of Seattle. I'm going to New York and LA and talking to agencies there. Like that's where the work is coming from for those. And it was like Zeke and Chris are were represented on their like writing directing side, and we looked at commercial representation. It was like, oh, this is a whole different path. Essentially we had to specialize in this, right? And it's like, yeah, a few things have come up here and there, but it's like, I don't know, I think it's honestly, it's less scary to me in the sense of like, I just really like that we are developing an expertise in something, and we're still going to do that other work, right? Like that work is then just a little more relationship based, where it's like, people know we can do that. They're going to come to us. We'll like suss out, but it's also, we're going to get the projects we want because that is the extra work, right? That's the on top of. And it's like, no, I don't want the well under budgeted sci-fi commercial where I am just like duct taping everything together. I want someone coming in and be like, oh yeah, here's like a proper budget and a proper prompt and brief and everything. It's like, oh, I really want to dive into this. Like I got to be picky on the fun stuff, right? Or I got to be picky on the other stuff. Like that's great, right? And with the customer service, it's like, well, a little less picky on that, but it's partly because we have we have a good expertise. And so even the ones that are maybe slightly off scope or brief, or it's like a tough customer, or it's a tough timeline, it's like we know how to make those good because we've done them so many times. Like I talked before about our whole like method, and like, and I mean, we can go in on my whole method, but there is like a step-by-step approach we take to these that has a lot of flexibility built in, but it's it's really figuring out like the marketing goals. It's the background on the customer. We are doing outlines, kickoff calls with customers that has certain things going through there. We are, really trying to get certain voices in these, right? Like there's the business side, there's the tech side, there's the frontline person, right? Trying to get that story. We have stories with like act structures, right? Like some background, lead up the problem. What is the problem? What's happening? The solution and the payoff, right? So there's these like arcs. And so part of this is that they feel familiar because we're making, ideally some company is making, as you said, like a whole playlist of them. They should feel similar story to story to story. They should have a feeling. It's why every movie more or less is a 3-act structure. You don't want to reinvent the structure every time. So it's like, how do you fit these stories there? We do a ton of pre-interviews, right? To really vet the story. So when I show up, I've already talked to this person for like an hour. Now I'm going to talk to them on a really specific set of things. So I'm no longer just like vetting whether they're going to talk to my talking points, right? And then all the like going through, but a lot of this also is like, it's also just, in this space, it's like what we also have had to get good at is these like these customer stories have a certain, as you said, like sign off, and it requires us like not just to make a good video. It has to be a good video that gets signed off by like 14 people across the company. So there's like outlines that get signed off and talk tracks that get signed off, and then the visual edit only gets seen by a few people because like, well, content was already signed off over here and customer sees it at this point, to make sure that you don't get that exec who sees an uncolor corrected, unscored thing and is like, I don't know, it just feels wrong. And it's like, well, it feels wrong because like it's not done, right? And it's like, how do you avoid that? And it's like, we've gotten good at that. And it's different sci-fi commercial where you have boards and a bunch of like previs and all this other stuff. Like that has its own process. And this is like, I've gotten good at it. And I can also see, like, I can watch other people's and be like, oh, someone meddled. That's why that happened, right? And it's like, you could have avoided it with the right process, but and the right talented people. Like it's a process, but then like, I have Zeke and Chris often out in the field doing these, who are very talented writer directors, but they also can improvise so well on set that I'm like, oh, that'll be good. So I'm hiring those type of directors kind of in their ilk, producers kind of, I suppose, in my ilk, right? Who can like really wing it out in the field, because it's like, it's a good process, but it has to be one where you've trusted people out there. That's the end of it. Specialize.
You're I've always known you to be a very self-aware person. And I think that's come across in how you've run your business as well, whether it's making a feature film or doing commercial stuff, or like finding this opportunity and seizing it because you know what you're good at and what you want to do. And I think that's what I want other production companies to take from this. I don't want to ask you any more. Actually, I feel like if I ask you any more questions about the process of this, I'm going to be giving away trade secrets that everyone's good.
It's fine. It's fine. Let's compete head to head.
There you go. There you go. I don't want all the listeners to become customer story companies. I want them to find their own, but whatever. The more the merrier that are specializing. And I think that's the takeaway for this. So Brice, thank you so much for being on the show and being so generous with your information. And I appreciate that.
No, it's great talking with you. I've enjoyed the podcast all up. Happy to be part of it this time. And thank you.
Thank you for listening to Crossing the Axis with James Keblas. If you're interested in joining the conversation or have a topic you'd like covered, please drop a note at keblas.com. That's KEBLAS.com.